Here's just a picture of the 10-person crew. A week before launch, we fly out to the KSC, and we get to fly in T-38s, and here we get to look like Blue Angels with a view of the pad as we break and turn into land. The excitement level is pretty high, but flying T-38s is pretty exciting as well. And at one point, Wendy told me I could not be a Blue Angel, but here I did my best to bring this crew in, and we arrived at KSC with some beautiful weather. We had to use 5 airplanes to bring everybody in. Everybody was in great spirits, looking forward to a couple of relaxing days after a very busy time in preparation.
And here we are. We're walking out on launch day from where we stay in crew quarters down there at the Cape. Weather didn't look real good, but we sure had our fingers crossed that we were going to launch this day. And we get out to the launch pad, and we actually had time to walk around and look at the vehicle. It's very impressive. You walk out there, and it's fueled up. It looks like it's living and breathing entity. Our suit techs and some astronaut support folks help us strap in. The line they always tell us is just be a vegetable. They do all the work. And they do a great job at getting us into our seats. 4 people on the flight deck and 3 in the mid-deck. You can see how we get in there on our backs because the shuttle, of course, is rotated up on the launch pad landing. By the time we launched, we've been on our seats about 2 hours, and as we got down to about a minute before liftoff, we were waiting to see what Don's speech would be.
For over 200 years, and certainly over the last 2 months, freedom rings loud and clear across this country, but right here and right now, it's time to let freedom roar. Let's light them up.
CLS's go for main engine start.
Engine start. 3 at 100. 102. Auto. 3 at 104. We're rolling. Romeo H. Houston Endeavor, roll program. Romeo H, on the left. On the right. Roger, roll. Good digital. Wait. Throttling. 3 at 104.
Endeavor Houston, go and throttle up.
Endeavor copies, go and throttle up.
Right there you could see the SRBs coming off. And that happens after about 2 minutes in flight. And then right here is about Mach 15 when we roll a heads up. And I don't know if you can tell, but the guy sitting on the right, which is me there looking out the window, and that's my really the first view I had of Earth, and it is just awe-inspiring. And right there was main engine cutoff at about Mach 25. And in a second here, you can see stuff is now floating in space with the checklist that I'm letting go of there. And we're orbiting the Earth.
First thing we do when we get into orbit is try to take this complex vehicle and turn it from a rocket into an orbiting vehicle. And it takes about a day and a half to catch up with the space station, and we need every minute of that day and a half to do everything that needs to be done, not only to the vehicle, but to us. Changing the, here's us on the mid-deck, and I'm just trying to figure out which end is, what my feet is, where my feet are, and where my head is. We have really about a day's worth of procedures to do to turn the shuttle into an orbiting spacecraft. Here we're, I think, pulling out some procedures and running through all those, getting ready for the rendezvous.
After the ascent, the rendezvous was our first big mission milestone, and to get to fly formation with a spaceship, bringing together the 2 probably most technologically advanced vehicles our country's ever produced, and getting to mate them together is a pilot's dream come true. We have some computers there helping us. Looking out the window, we can see this beautiful spaceship glowing bright golden with the solar rays. And as we got closer, it was just a more spectacular view with every minute. We knew Frank was on the other side, waiting for us. Here's a view. Looking out the back window, you can see the station coming down at the same time as this insert. Shows us about a foot or 2 from docking. And right prior to docking, we fire some jets that mates it hard, and the latches grab hold, and we're in a great config. and it took a little bit of work for Linda to bring the station down. Folks were thinking it was a pretty good time too, and gave me a clap on the back. I sure enjoyed that.
Just about, probably about 2 hours after we docked, we're getting the hatch open, and this is from the orbiter side. You can see Dom and Yuri here open the hatch for us to see the Expedition 3 crew for the first time, and that's Frank on the other side of the hatch there. And this is a view from the U.S. laboratory, the first thing you come into when you get into the space station, and it was really good to see those guys on the other side. You never know what could be in there. But my initial reaction was that the place is just huge compared to a lot of room, and it's a marvelous facility, and just a real state-of-the-art laboratory where we're going to get some incredible science and incredible technology out of it. And here's us getting ready for our first crew photo as a crew of 10 instead of a crew of 7. The next day is when we move the MPLM. Linda here is at the arms of, or is at the controls of the robot arm, and this is moving about 5 times faster than reality. When you move big masses on orbit, you move them pretty slow. This is the MPLM here has about 6,000 pounds of stuff in it, and most of it is stuff for Expedition 4. It's experiments, their food, clothing, everything they need that'll last them till this May when they come home. We're going to take the MPLM here, and Linda's going to maneuver it exactly where it needs to be within tenths of inches and berth it to the node.
Finally get to open the hatch into the MPLM, and as Mark said, we got about 3 tons worth of stuff that they're going to need on the station. They pack absolutely everything imaginable in there, and everything has to be accounted for. So when we transfer things in and out of the MPLM, everything has to be accounted for, checked off the list. We have a barcode reader that barcodes it. We have a tag that we've got to take off. You can't believe absolutely everything that needs to be checked off. We found they packed everything in this thing, and the problem with Dan was that we couldn't find his barcode, but after a lot of searching, fortunately not too much searching, we found it and checked him off the list.
Well, Dan and I were fortunate to get to go out and do a spacewalk, and it takes a lot of preparation, and here we are on the day prior starting to get our tools ready. We have something we wear on the front of our suit called a mini workstation, and it holds a lot of stuff, and we're getting all that ready to go. That's my pants. I'm not in them yet, but here Dan's in his pants. So we're just getting ready, and we have the upper torso waiting for us in the airlock. We got all suited up. And here's a couple different views of what I looked like coming out of the airlock, and what you see flopping open there is the thermal cover. This is a real thrill. I mean, I can't really explain what it feels like, and I think Dan would agree. We go out with such confidence in these suits, we don't even really think about we're out there in our own little spaceship where everything has to work just right. And here we are on the arm, and Mark's going to move us as close as he can to where we need to go.
Riding on the arm was a real treat. For us, we're just holding on while Mark does all the hard work at this time, getting us in location. And it was my first opportunity to look around, and he lifts you up about 60 feet above the station, and there you can see our shadows. It was an unbelievably cool experience for me. Here you're watching Mark and Dom. Dom was our, what we call IV. He ran the spacewalk from the inside. You can see all the tools they're using to help us get out to our work site. This is a great series here. I was so surprised on my first flight how quickly things got dark and light, and boom, now we're in nighttime, and we have to actually tell ourselves, helmet lights on. Our first and primary task in the EVA was to put thermal blankets around the things called the beta gimbal assembly. Big motor that's been acting up a little bit. They thought maybe that by putting a koozie around it of sorts, they might be able to regulate its temperature and resolve some of the problems they're seeing. It was a very well-designed blanket that we put out. We did 2 of them, and They're custom made. They've got cutouts and Velcro to hold them together. You can also see my view. This is my view out of my helmet camera here. And it's an incredible workplace. It really is an office with a great window view. Here's the completed first cover that we put on, and we did the same thing on the other BGA.
We had a shroud for the S-band antenna assembly that had been stowed in a stowage bin on P6, and we were to pull that out. So I pulled it out. That was the easy job. I gave it to Dan to wrap up, and it had a multi-foot tether on it he had to contend with. And doing this in a spacesuit with gloves on is all these tasks are a little more difficult. It's like working around your house or in your car with big, heavy mittens that are kind of stiff. It's just not what you're used to. And here he's got it all bundled up pretty nicely, and we're heading back to the arm for our ride back to the payload bay.
On the when we were completed with that SASA shroud, we actually went to another place on the station to drop off some tools for not the next flight, but the flight after that in April. And since we had that opportunity, that ride again, we took advantage of the view. We took as many pictures as we could on the view. At this moment, although I'm disappointed that it didn't turn on in the video, we're right over Houston, and that was one of the most memorable things on this flight, is looking down at Houston. We came back to the orbiter, and you can see the airlock there, and we were done with our EVA.
This is like Thanksgiving on orbit. To have 10 people around one table enjoying all the food from the United States and Russia was an unbelievable treat. The Russian food was really good, and afterwards we had some entertainment. Carl is a very accomplished keyboard player, and I'm a very poor guitar player, and we had just a wonderful time enjoying each other's company when we had a few moments. When we're on Earth, Dan Burch is not the tallest in human stature, but he can slam dunk with the best of them on orbit. When we were complete with all our transfer, Linda got asked to put on our crew sticker on the wall of all the visiting flights. She was our transfer person, and just an outstanding job. We had a change of command ceremony where Frank gave the reins of the station to Yuri, and we took a couple opportunities for pictures that we'll probably cherish forever.
Well, at near the end of our dock time, once we got the MPLM reloaded with everything, Mark had the job of uninstalling it and very carefully maneuvering it back to berth in the payload bay. And it takes a lot of precision to put it back in. You'll get a view here that shows it's a pretty tight fit, but he put it in with great finesse, and I'm pretty sure when they got it back and looked at it, they didn't see any scratch marks or scuff marks on the side. He did a really good job.
This is at the point where we're going to close the hatch and undock. And shortly here you'll see separation between the two spacecraft. And flying formation on a space station for me was one of the highlights of the mission. I said earlier that ascent was certainly the most fun I've had, but the most incredible view I've ever seen in my life was during this fly around. And you'll see in a second a picture of the space station, some video of the space station over the Caribbean, and it was just incredible. Here you can see, this doesn't exactly do it justice, but you can see Florida up here in the top of the picture, and the green Caribbean Sea beneath it. This shows the trajectory we flew around the space station, this arc. And right before we separated, we were all the way on the other side of the space station from when we started. We started on the far side here and wound up behind it, and then did a burn to separate.
The day after undocking, we had one final official duty, and that was to deploy a satellite called Starshine, and it was my honor to press the button. Starshine is it can be thought of as like a disco ball, and its only purpose is to be observed by people on the ground. The Starshine itself is made up of thousands of mirrors that were polished by students all around the world. So it's encouraging to think of all ages and all nations involved in the space program.
And when we had any free moment, we were up on the flight deck of the orbiter with cameras looking at what we could of the Earth. Here's a view going by Cuba. Most beautiful place, yeah. And here are the Swiss Alps, and you can really see the snow there and the relief of some of the mountains. Just gorgeous views, and it doesn't show up so well in this format, but this is a view of California.
As one of the new guys up there, I really enjoyed all aspects of being in zero G. But I don't know, there's something about eating that it took me a little while to get used to, but became one of the most enjoyable parts once you got it mastered. And scrambled eggs were delicious, but they could really get away from you, so you had to really keep an eye on all your eggs. We drink water out of bags, and the reason we drink water out of bags is because if you put them in a cup or a glass, you'd end up with a big mess and an angry commander. So, but every once in a while, with a lot of towels in our hand, you can get that water out and have a little fun with it. And these are M&Ms that we're going to try to get absorbed into the water there. This is a surface tension experiment for all you science fans. You can spin it up with this piece of dental floss, and if it gets too far away from you, you can eat your data.
That didn't look like a lot of water, but I almost drowned there. One of the biggest challenges I thought from the entire mission was taking a spaceship and getting all reconfigured to come home. You start the day before, and boy, you're on this timeline when you get up on entry day. Here you can see the HUD video in the inset, and at this point we're probably about 85,000 feet at about 270 knots, and we'll be on the ground shortly. We fly this heading alignment circle, and then we roll out on final, and I think Dom's words here were something to the effect of good grief, because you can see the clouds. We normally don't expect to land flying through clouds, but you can see right here, this is the altitude where it's 7,000 feet and still no runway. 6,000 feet, and it's cloudy. So we're getting maybe just a little bit nervous. We break out at 5,500 feet, and you can see the runway right here at the top of the screen. At this point, we're doing 300 knots. The orbiter has no thrust, so we're a glider right here. Gear come down at about 300 feet. Actually, press the button at 300 feet, and they're down and locked by about 200. And then we touch down at 200 knots. My daughter Claire was down there for a week. She saw the ascent. She saw everything on TV, but she said this part was her favorite, the parachute coming out. She just loved the parachute. We rolled about 10,000 feet down the runway. The runway at KSC is the longest runway the longest hard runway in the world, one of them, and it's 15,000 feet, so we had about 5,000 feet left to go. That is the weather airplane flying by. We came to a stop, and then it takes probably a good another hour and a half before you're outside the orbiter, and then you get to change into your flight suits and walk around. You're a little bit wobbly in the beginning, but shortly thereafter you're doing pretty good.